Hey, what is up guys, Terrence here and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be going over slow motion in Davinci Resolve. Recently I made a switch from Android over to iOS and I've been stunned by the performance of the iPhone's camera. You can see a video here that I made on the iPhone at 240 FPS. It was of course edited in Davinci Resolve, adding some music, doing the slow motion itself, and also a bit of sound design. Since then I have been doing some tests on the iPhone to see how viable it is to take it out in the field, because I shoot mainly on a Sony a7 III and that only shoots up to 120 FPS. So if I need to go to 40, I was wondering if the phone could fit in and actually get some shots that were usable. And I found that under fair lighting conditions, it's actually not that bad at 1080p. So today we're going to be playing with this piece of footage right here that I just dragged in. It's off some Norse beads falling on the ground. This was shot on the iPhone 12 at 240 FPS. We don't need the audio. Here's where the video starts. This is what it looks like. Oh, this is taking a while. If you should bring some footage in Davinci Resolve and it's playing in slow motion by default, or you could bring something and it's just not playing right, chances are the footage needs to be interpreted correctly. So go to your footage, right click and go to clip attributes. Up here you see the frame rate, it's 240. If you don't see your actual frame rate on the list, you want to hit custom and you want to type it in. So in my case that is 240 FPS. Hit OK. It's going to show that the media is offline. Let's just delete that. Come here, going to drag the video back in, and here it is playing back at 24 FPS. The shutter speed was very high. As you can see, it's best to shoot at high shutter speeds if you're going to be slowing it down, because you don't want a whole lot of motion blur. The rule of thumb is to shoot at 2 times your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 60, you want 120 for the shutter speed. If you're shooting at 240, you want 480. But on the iPhone, I think this was set to about 2000, because what I'm going to be doing here is slowing things down even more and doing some interpretation with optical flow. First off, I'm going to be making some cuts to the footage because we don't need all this front part. We just need it from right here. So Control B, I'm going to backspace and get rid of that. And then as soon as the beads stop moving, but my hand shadow doesn't pass over, I'm going to delete it right here. So this is all we need. And there are a few ways to do slow motion inside of Davinci Resolve. If we right click, you can see here we have change clip speed. You can go here and make it say half the speed, and you hit play. It'll be slower. We go back. There's also retime controls. You can click here and you can change the speed to say 50%. It plays back at half the speed. Or you can say go here and right click. Oh, not right click. You're gonna click this thing right here, add a speed point, and here you can say drop this down to 25%. So it's gonna be playing at 100%, and at this point drops to 25%. The issue here is it lacks control, so I almost never use these options unless I know, like, hey, I want this footage to play at 50% or whatever. That's the only time I'd use this. So let's undo. Oop, a little too much. And we're going to turn off the speed change. What I like to do is right clicking and going to retime curve. This is where things get interesting. If you don't see this little drop down right here, you just want to zoom in, because if you zoom all the way out, it's going to disappear. You're going to zoom in on the footage and hit that and hit retime speed. And this is where all the control comes in. You have a range from 0% to 300%. If you want to speed it up, you want to crank this up some more so you can get it to higher values. In this case, I'm going to drop it down to 200, the lowest, because I want to have as much area that's viewable, if that makes sense. All right, so now you can actually alt click on the timeline. That's for Windows at least. And you can just click wherever you want and slow things down. And the next great thing is if you click on the keyframe, you can click here and you get a curve. That way you can make the transition smooth or a sharp one. So it's coming high speed, then boom, instantly drops to a lower speed. Or you can just give it a fall off like this. So instead of coming in and just going super slow from 0 to 100, it just slows it down gradually. You can make that movement as gradual as you want. Alright, now let's try to drag this down as low as we can. Let's go to say 10%. At some point it's going to start falling apart because you simply won't have enough information, enough frames in your footage to make it slower, to get like super slow motion. Let's hit play. As you can see, the 240 FPS footage is reaching that point right now. Things are starting to look not as good as they can. So let's drop this down even more, say 5%. And at this point, it turns into a slideshow, like those movies from the 80s and 90s that didn't have like high-speed slow motion cameras used in them. So what we can do at this point is turn on optical flow. If you go to your inspector up here, the footage clicked, you can scroll down and you'll see retime and scale. I'm going to open this, and the retime process, I want to change this to optical flow. There's nearest and the frame blend. These two options, I never use them because they're not as good. Let's hit optical flow. And what it does is, it's like, imagine you're an animator in a studio and you draw the, I don't remember the names, but like the main frames of animation, and then have some other guys come in and add frames in between those. As you can see here, if I should zoom in, you can see the optical flow. It's trying to make frames in between the frames of this thing moving, little beads. But what it does though, at really slow speeds, if the object is moving too fast, it can cause some ghosting, as you'll see here. So let's try it. It's definitely smoother, but there's some ghosting going on, right? And that does not look good. So if we want super slow motion from just 240 frames per second, we're gonna have to do some more work. And here's where the other option comes in. This is motion estimation. It's a pretty processor intensive option, so you can set it to speed warp, but it's very processor intensive to say the least. So what I recommend doing is adjusting all your animations here, and then once that's finished, you can turn on the speed warp. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have it hit slow down, then right here we're gonna add another keyframe. We're gonna speed it back up. I think I'm just gonna cut the video here. All right, so we have about 15 seconds of some animation going on. Let's delete that part. We don't need that. Now what we're gonna be doing is going back to the inspector. On the retime and scale, we're gonna hit motion estimation and set it to speed warp. Now if you try to play your video, I'm not sure if stronger computers will handle this better, but mine doesn't. Nothing happens. Just hit stop. If I should move along the timeline though, it tends to render the frame sometimes when you move through them. As you can see, nothing's happening right now. Don't panic. We're gonna right click and we're gonna hit render in place. I just leave these at the default. Hit render. We're gonna select a location. Under my cache clip, I created this folder named render in place. Just hit that, select folder, and now it's going to start rendering the video. This may take a while depending on the length of the video and the size and all that kind of stuff. So just give it some time. I'll be right back when it's finished. Alright, so now we're back, and the video has rendered. It took about 2 minutes to render this out. And this is what it looks like now. As you can see, it looks a whole lot better than it did before. We don't have that weird ghosting as much. almost looks like super slow motion, like it was shot on a camera that was shooting at way higher FPS than 240, and that is exactly what we're going for. By the way, if you should go back to retime curve, you won't see the changes you made. If you want to go back and make changes, you just gotta right click and hit decompose to original, and then if you look at your keyframes, you should see the keyframes that you made from before. Like I said, if you're trying to scrub through, you're just gonna see the frame that you land on. It's not gonna play, at least not on my system. Maybe my computer is weak. You can turn off set it back to project settings, get rid of the speed warp, and then you can see your animation like it was before with the ghosting and all that stuff we tried to avoid. You can go ahead, make your changes, do whatever, and once you're done, you just go back and hit render in place, or if you know that it's fine, you can just go to deliver and export your video. Alright, well, that was it for the video. It's your boy Terrence. Glad to be back making some videos on here. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'm out. Peace.